Hello everyone and welcome to this week's Top 5 Wednesday. The topic for this week is gateway books to your favourite genre. So 5 books that you think are great starting points into your favourite genres. So the 5 genres I'm going to talk about today aren't the only genres I read. I do try to read as widely across genres as I can, but they are, I think, my favourite 5 genres and certainly the genres that I have read the most in. So the first genre is fantasy, and the book I'm going to talk about may seem like a very obvious and very basic starting point in fantasy, but it is of course the Harry Potter series. This is of course the first book, The Philosopher's Stone, and when I read this I was about 8 or 9 years old, and my only experience of fantasy and magic before I read this was from Disney films. And obviously Harry Potter just kind of opened up this revelation to me that maybe people who aren't princesses or witches or fairies could have some kind of magical ability, and it just sort of gave me hope that maybe I could have some sort of magical ability. Obviously Harry is supposed to be a normal human like I am, who finds out at 11 years old that he has this wonderful gift, and he has a lot of friends and family who also have this gift. So it just kind of opened up this whole realization that magic could actually be accessible to people who aren't magical mythical creatures, that humans could actually do magic. And therefore it is of course still my favorite series of all time, but that is certainly one reason why Harry Potter is so close to my heart. And obviously as I grew up I went on to read a lot of YA fantasy and now adult fantasy, so I am a huge fantasy fan, and I firmly believe that it all started of course with this book. Obviously I think a lot of people watching this will have read the Harry Potter series, or you will have at least read a few of the books in it, so it is a very basic starting point, but I think every child should definitely be introduced to the Harry Potter series. The next genre I want to talk about is YA Contemporary, but what I've realised with YA Contemporary is there is at least two very distinct branches of it. So you've got one branch that focuses on very kind of light-hearted, fluffy, romance-centred stories about teenage relationships and love interests and things like that, where everything is very kind of rosy. And then you've got another branch which deals with more serious, they're normally very family-based or friendship based, and they normally have like deep serious issues like illness or death or some sort of serious stuff going on. So I love both of those branches of YA Contemporary, so I'm gonna give you some recommendations for both of them. So for the first kind of light-hearted fluffy sort of branch of it, I'm gonna say Anna and the French Kiss by Stephanie Perkins. This little series of 3 companion books are just perfect if you need an antidote from a lot of sort of dark heavy books. You know that there is not going to be anything too serious in these books. You don't have to invest a lot of thought and emotion into them, although obviously there are points where you are like, okay, what's going to happen? I really hope she ends up with him and all that kind of stuff. It's not really very emotionally draining like the other branch of YA Contemporary is, and certainly this little series, it has a lot of humour in it. It has just a lot of lovely kind of smiley brightness to it. There's nothing really that's going to make you cry in it, and I absolutely love books like that because I do like a good cry, but I also love a good laugh and a good, like, you know, feeling of sort of calm serenityness as well. And I think that the Anna and the French Kiss series definitely gives you that when you need it. So yeah. And the other branch of YA Contemporary that deals with obviously very serious issues, a great starting point for that I think is The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. This is a book that is really popular now, but also I want to say anything by John Green because a lot of his books do deal with some form of seriousness. He doesn't tend to write a lot of light-hearted stuff, although I haven't actually read all of his books, but I don't think any of them have a very sort of comedy type take to them. His books do tend to have some sort of darkness or some sort of moral message to them. So you've got this one obviously deals with cancer, and then you've got other books in this genre like All the Bright Places, which deals with suicide. You've got Perks of Being a Wallflower, which deals with abuse. You've got Skies Everywhere by Jandy Nelson, which deals with a family death and feelings of guilt and things like that. So these books are very emotionally draining. They will definitely make you cry, and that's one reason that I love them, because I just like to let my emotions out sometimes. So they do definitely serve a purpose, and they are really, really popular. They will destroy you, and apparently we like being destroyed as readers. But definitely The Fault in Our Stars is a great place to start, I think. The next genre I want to talk about is classics. Now, I know a lot of people tend to shy away from classics now because they feel maybe a little bit intimidated by them, but I've read a lot of them. Certainly we had to read a lot of them when we were at school, and then I went on to do a degree in English literature, so I have read a whole bunch of classics, mostly British classics admittedly, but yeah, I really, really enjoy them, and a great starting point I think for that is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, but also like anything by Jane Austen, because she is very light-hearted. Her characters are normally very lovable, and yeah, her stories are not really that inaccessible to anyone, I don't think. I know that a lot of people feel put off by them because of the language and the writing style, because these things have changed over obviously all the years since these books were written, but they do definitely still serve a purpose, and I certainly find them really comforting, I think. And I'm not sure if that's because I've been reading them for years and years. It might be that, but yeah, I love them. I kind of feel they are sort of more wintry autumnal books rather than summer books. I'm not really sure why, but certainly anything by Jane Austen is a great way to get into classics if you are wanting to, but you do feel a little bit intimidated by them, because her stories are just very normally light-hearted. There's a lot of comedy in them as well, and her characters are very memorable. They're called classics for a reason, I think, and Jane Austen is a great way to get into them. So yeah. And the last genre I'm going to talk about is a genre that I know a lot of you will know that I'm a huge fan of, because I talk about it all the time, and it is of course horror, in particular Stephen King horror. And this isn't actually the first Stephen King book that I read, but I think it's a great way to get into him, and that is Carrie by Stephen King. It's not a very long book, so if you are a little bit unsure about whether Stephen King is for you, you've only got really a couple of 100 pages if you start with Carrie. It's the first book that he wrote, so it is his first novel, so therefore that might be another reason why it's a great way to start with Stephen King. But also I feel like it sort of straddles genres a little bit, because maybe a lot of you have seen the film adaptation of this, but Carrie is telekinesis, so there is kind of that element to it as well. So yeah, you have got a lot going on. It is horror, like it is absolutely horrific, the events of this book, but it is more, I want to say it's sort of YA, but it's tricky. It sort of straddles a lot of genres, I think, and that's probably why it's a great way to sort of ease yourself into Stephen King if you are a little bit unsure about him. But it is definitely horror. Carrie does some terrible, horrific things in this book. But yeah, so you would get the horror side of it, but with elements that you are familiar with, certainly if you read YA and teen fiction a lot. So yeah, but I think Carrie is a great starting point for Stephen King. As I said, it's not actually the first one that I read, but I sort of wish it had been, because it's a great book, and I wanted to read a lot more of him after that. So yeah. And that is it for this week's Top 5 Wednesday. Do you think you might want to get into any of these genres? I would love it if you would let me know if you do. What do you think are some great books? What are some great starting points to get into some of your favourite genres? Let me know. I will leave all my social media in the description down below as normal. I hope you're having an awesome day, and I will see you very soon for another video. Bye bye.